Hello there. Do you like China, Japan, or Korea? Do you like economics, politics, or international? I don't care what you like, okay? Because the topic of this video is already set in stone. And it is how the Sino-Japanese War caused change in terms of political power and international relations. Very nice. Moving on. It's the third time I'm recording this, I'm getting mad. Before we talk about the bulk of the video, let me give you some context. Alright, so according to Chinese professor Zhang Yufan, Japan learned a universal rule when the West came in looking for foreign trade, which is that the strong will always prey on the weak. Can you hear me? This incentivized them to become a stronger nation and to prey on other weaker nations in their book, and in this case it was China. And secondly, something else that contributed to the Sino-Japanese War, Japan's use of iron contributed to this, because they were able to build their battleships and the weaponry they used that was superior to China. Basically, they were able to construct a superior technology that they used during the war from iron. Therefore, iron contributed to the Sino-Japanese War. So that recording is all here. Yeah. What time is it? Yeah, that was from 2 hours ago. I didn't write a script yet. So moving on to political changes. Basically, this is going to split into two sections. This section is going to be about international politics. Basically, what other countries thought about China and Japan. Very epic. So I am going to be using this image here, which was titled The Giant Killer, and this was published in a British magazine called The Punch, I think, and it depicts a Japanese soldier standing over a Chinese soldier in China, and we know this person is Japanese because the classic katana, and we know this is the Chinese soldier because the shield literally has a Chinese. Oh, that's gonna tip over. We know this is a Chinese soldier because the shield the person's holding has a Chinese character on it, and this shows how the outside world is viewing the situation between China and Japan, because by depicting a Japanese soldier standing on top of a Chinese soldier, it's basically saying Japan's now more powerful than China. And unlike prior to Sino-Japanese War, where the common perception was China was more powerful than Japan. Alright, I'm going unscripted. Alright, now this argument is of course not without flaws. One of the flaws I can point out in this argument is that it only shows Britain's point of view, and although Britain was a very big, very powerful force back then, it doesn't fully represent all of the views. It only represents Britain's views. Now moving on to political change part 2. So by the end of the Sino-Japanese War, Japan had more political control over China, and we can see this in the Treaty of Shimonoseki. Alright, I gotta make sure. Shimonoseki. Which was a treaty that ended the war. Now, in this treaty, China is commanded to open up 4 additional ports. Shashi, Chongqing, Suzhou, Hangzhou. Japan had the right to station any consul they wished in these ports. So this means that they were able to exert direct political control of that city, because the consul they stationed would most likely represent their interest. Thus, Japan, by the end of the Sino-Japanese War, had more political control over China. But vibe check. Alright, finally moving on to international relations. Alright, so during the war, Japan allegedly committed many wartime atrocities, one of which was the beheading of prisoners if they ever caused any trouble. This was from a Princeton website, very trustworthy. So the way Japanese politicians dealt with this was that they whitewashed these atrocities, and this greatly infuriated the neighboring countries, specifically China and Korea, and so this severely damaged the relationship between these countries. Alright, so based on this, we can see that the relationship between these countries changed after the Sino-Japanese War. However, a flaw of this argument is that the relationships before the war was not mentioned. However, even if the relationship prior to the war wasn't good, then after the war it still would have changed, as it worsened with the Japanese whitewashing of these atrocities. So therefore, change still occurred. In conclusion, the Sino-Japanese War caused change in terms of political power and international relations.